Friends, the essence of the final portions in the book of Exodus, the book we close tonight, is the radical idea that we human beings can actually build a house of appreciation, gathering, and community for God, now known as a temple or synagogue. Back then, it was a fancy tent outdoors. A second big idea is that sacred spaces can inspire mystery, meaning, majesty, like magic, what we call God's presence, what we experience sometimes even when we sing. The Torah's essential teaching, we reiterate this week, is that God does not dwell only up in the heavens or on some breathtaking mountaintop or looking out at a beautiful ocean. God dwells not only in this house of God named Temple Israel, God dwells wherever and whenever we let God in. Our synagogue and our people's namesake, Jacob Israel, you'll recall, said in the last book of the Torah preceding this one, after waking up from his sleep, Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. Surely the presence of God is even in this desert place, this wilderness, and I did not know it. Jacob learns that every spot on earth, even the desert, can become a stairway to heaven for someone. This week, in the closing verses of chapter 40 in the book of Exodus, God is in the cloud, the backdrop of our bima, the cloud that descends upon the original tabernacle. The cloud becomes a signal for our ancestors to move forward on their journey through the wilderness. But God is also not just in the clouds. God is in the confines of the cabinets in your houses, the closets of our homes containing memories, Seder plates, photo albums of family members and friends who remind us of God's presence. God is not confined only to special places like this synagogue where we feel the sacred and experience the divine. We find God in the mystery of new life and moments wherever we are, in the wonder of a newborn child or the milestone moment of a wedding ceremony. Yet, as we have learned this past year as much as ever, both as a nation and congregation since COVID began, God also dwells in the shadows of life, giving us the strength to endure the loss of loved ones, the loss of jobs and human connectivity. It's been especially hard since 1 year ago, this Shabbat, when we were fearing the COVID unknown, which so many of you and others have found the courage to face this year of challenge in different ways. On this date 1 year ago, we were justifiably fearful. In fact, we would have been even more freaked out if we had been told what we could never have imagined a year ago tonight, that 1 in 5 Americans would lose a loved one to COVID, even if it wasn't someone you may know. 532,000 deaths, so many preventable, as we now know, by adhering to the small sacrifice, not defending our country overseas, in the military, leaving family, No, just a small sacrifice of keeping distance 6 feet or wearing a mask. 1 year after surviving the trauma and fear, those of us still here, there is reason to be hopeful tonight with the tripling, quadrupling of safe and effective vaccines in the last few months alone. As we prepare to spring forward tomorrow evening, we move from fear last year to hope tonight. From darkness to light, with Passover almost in sight. But friends, Judaism is not about starts and finishes. It's about an ongoing journey of meaning. It's about joining hands together as a congregation, as a Jewish people, as a nation and world, to kindle God's light of humanity and to keep putting out the fires of hatred wherever they are raging. As we look to better days ahead, our mitzvah mission doesn't change. Our holy work as Jews doesn't change, because the Torah's call is the same: to narrow the gap between what is and what ought to be, to remember our personal responsibility in putting out the fires of division wherever and whenever we can, and not only to help ourselves, but especially others find a way one COVID year later to move forward somehow, from pain to purpose, from hurt to healing, from sadness to simcha. Just as our ancestors did leaving Egypt, many of us have found God in the wilderness of this COVID year. We couldn't even answer the question, when is God? Because we usually didn't even know what day it was until Shabbat rolled around again. And the where is God question, we all saw answered not in empty churches, synagogues, or mosques. We saw the where is God answer in packed hospital ICUs and in the overworked faces and tears of nurses, doctors, and other essential workers. It's not cliche to say, looking back a year, that we were in this together and that we are still in this together. Even this week's Torah portion confirms this idea that we're still in this together. You see that tabernacle described, containing the 10 Commandments and our guideposts for living? We learned this week that it was co-designed by 2 artists named Bitzalel and Oholiab. Bitzalel from the most powerful of the 12 tribes, the tribe of Judah, and a second artist, Oholiab, from the weakest tribe, the tribe of Dan. Thus reminding us that not only in the building of the ancient tabernacle, but in the building of this temple, in the building of a better Memphis, a better nation, a better world, the strong and the weak must work together for the whole to be greater than its parts. In concluding any book of the Torah, as we do on this Shabbat, we are supposed to exclaim 3 words: Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. Be strong, everyone. Be strong, everyone. And let us strengthen one another. Amen.